it's an interesting point you touch on. I mean, I grew up in a community where I was basically the only Pakistani family in school and in the whole kind of area, which is Woodley.
Okay.
And I was kind of go for walks every day, as we'll discuss later on. And
Sure.
I was looking at the demographics of the people, and I could see kind of an Afro-Caribbean family over there, a Chinese family there, an Indian family there,
Sure.
a kind of Eastern European family there. And obviously the demographics have changed over the past kind of 35, 40 years. But growing up, I grew up in that kind of environment where people around me were cadets or football hooligans, and a really, really English, very nice, very pleasant, very
Sure.
educated, but it was an all-white town.
Okay. So how did you, having grown up in an all-white town, end up where you are today?
How did I suffer the racism, you mean?
How did you end up where you are today, having been, growing up in an environment that perhaps there weren't many, like you said, there weren't many Muslim families around?
No, there weren't any. There weren't any. A common phrase often used with me was, we hate he's, but he's all right. He's all right. He's my mate. And I can't, I guess as bad as you feel, like the internal feeling, the face you won't show anyone, the feelings you won't reveal to people. If you're honest, if anyone's honest, it's a painful and it's a challenging experience. It hurts your ego, it hurts your pride, it makes you feel weak. Being bullied, I don't think is a pleasant experience for anyone.
Sure.
But I guess because, going back to the era I grew up in, my father would expect me to be a man at like 6 years old. Do you know what I mean? You're a man, son, you're a man. So a very tough upbringing, and, these challenges, these knocks, these, negative experiences, being beaten up, spat on, chased. I remember school, people have had maybe 2 or 3 fights in their life. But you know this, right? But I literally would be in one every day, sometimes twice a day for many, many years. And then it got to a point, because actually my dad was quite strict, the usual story.
Yep. It seems to be a theme. It seems like everybody who comes on from a South Asian or Afro-Caribbean background, the childhood story is pretty much the same. You got beat up at home. You're expected to be tough. You either, were studious or you were rebellious, and then there came a turning point. The story kind of is the same for all of us.
Absolutely. And it's actually the same, but my father it's the same figure that to the reason why I probably took a lot of the bullying and abuse.
Okay.
When you get bullied and abused, you just become used to it. And you often hear this from people who've been abused, victims, innit? They just, they just let it keep happening to them. And it got to a point where, me being punched in the face or being called the P word or whatever, it was just a normal thing. I'd get bullied. All right, okay, let me get on with my day.
Crack on with it.
And part of the reason is because I didn't want to get in unnecessary trouble at school with the teachers or have police involved or get into fisticuffs or having to be violent every day. And obviously there's a risk of getting hurt. And the main reason is because I thought, my father would absolutely hammer me, if I got into trouble. So you get battered
outside, you come in and get beat up again.
So one of the, you keep mentioning turning points. One of the turning points for me as a young man and, actually standing up to the bullying and the racism and the constant, torment and torture that I was being put through, was actually my father. It was the same guy. I remember we were on our way home from school and, I literally, my house from the school, it's literally a 5-minute walk. But, my dad had such a vision that he wouldn't even want me to be free for 5-10 minutes because probably rightfully so, I'd probably end up down the wrong alley somewhere. I'd sit in a park and do whatever, as young boys do. So he'd pick us up after school and take us home. And I remember, I was about to get into this altercation with some usual lads and, cadet football hooligan types. And, they were always on kind of giving me grief. But, my dad's walked up and my sister was there as well. She's only a year below me. And we got in the car. I remember we got in the car, we're driving off. And, my dad's got them hawk eyes, and he was just looking in the rear mirror like this. And I looked back and, they've thrown, some gestures in it. And I thought, what have they done in it? And my dad saw it and he turned the car around.
Okay.
And I was like, what's going on here? And, my dad pulled over the car and he's jumped out and I've just jumped out with him. And he's gone, listen, what's with the hand gestures? You want to fight? Here's my son. Here.
He's laid you up a hand job on the play.
He said, go on, son. have the one-on-one with him now. I'm here, the other won't get involved. And, whatever transpired from that, it was obviously, became a very positive, it was a win for me because because that whole thing psychologically, they were thinking, they backed up. But at that point, I realised that, Jesus, my dad is with me.
Yeah.
He's not going to, I'm not going to go home. And so I told him, that, look, this happens to me quite regularly. And then, it was actually that communication, because before, being from that era, my dad didn't put me on his lap and play with me and whatnot.
I was going to say, you mentioned at the start about that era. And I guess it was very different in terms of conversation and having those conversations, not just with your friends or your peers, but even at home with your dad. A lot of us probably suffered a lot outside of the house that we never spoke about.
Yeah, inside, outside, all sides. I mean, there are so many taboo things that I've experienced. And, the reason why I made that point about being from that era and why I support what you're doing, aside from our friendship and relationship, is actually what has been a massive deficit, especially in our community, is kind of the mental health and well-being for men. Be it a young boy, be it a teenage boy, being someone getting into adulthood or career and marriage and all the rest of it, whatever stage. Men in our era were just people who were just supposed to stand up and perform, and whatever the task set was, you had to go and do it. Responsibilities,
just get on with it,
whatever it is.
Yeah.
And people forgot actually that being a man and upholding all of these conditions is very, very, very hard.
Yeah.
And there's so many taboo subjects in our community. For example, I've suffered twice from prostate cancer, right? And malignant both times, so both life-threatening terminal situations. And I remember, being kind of 18, 19, 20, I think I was, when I saw the first sign of this kind of teratoma appear where, somewhere, by my prostate. And because, these things are not discussed at home, they're not discussed openly, I was like, okay, well, this is getting harder and bigger. This is a good thing. This must be good. I must be growing, and that, went on for a year. And then after a year, it came to like a cricket ball size. And then I realised I should go to a doctor now.
Okay, so you let it go on for that long?
Yeah. I walked myself all the way up to death's line myself, mate, thinking that, it isn't that bad. It wasn't, it's all right. It's got bigger but maybe, coming out of my teens, going into adulthood, maybe this is a part of growing up. And again, it's a taboo. Who do I sit down and speak to about my prostate? In the community, we didn't have anyone older, or an older brother, somebody that you could look to. My dad was always keen to, whichever doctor walked past, he'd put me in front of him, make him a doctor.
Sure.
They had the right intentions,
of course,
and they want the best for their children.
Yeah.
Having learnt from the mistakes they made in their life. So now I'm older, I understand and I recognise everything that my father or my parents or elders were doing, and it's absolutely correct.
We kind of go through a period, right, where it gets to a point where you're like, yeah, everything you said kind of makes sense now. I'm not going to admit it to you. All those years I was rebelling, or I didn't listen, or I didn't agree, I didn't understand. Now I'm like, okay, I get it.
I actually thanked my dad. Because I don't know why I keep speaking about dad. He's not like a key, problem in my life. He's actually
a massive influence.
He's an inspiration. And as I've got older, there comes a point where you realise that who the hero is in your life, innit? And for me, I realised it was my father. Anyway, I can't remember what I was saying now.
So you mentioned you had cancer at the age of 20, 21?
Yeah, I think I was 20 or 21, 1999. So it was 98 where I started seeing the changes. And 99, I was diagnosed.
And what was that like at the time? How did it, look, being the eldest son in a house?
Well, yeah. I've just gone through the experience a second time during COVID, I think, kind of 22.
Okay.
22 or 23 during the COVID.
It'd be really interesting to hear how your mindset and approach differed both times, because you were quite young the first time.
Yeah. So what I had when I was younger, which obviously I didn't have the second time round, is youth, right? So you have a stronger body, you have the ability to recover quicker. Yes, you get hurt, but you heal quicker. You're still growing. Your bones are still strong. Everything hasn't been used that much in terms of your body and your organs. You're younger, so you're confident, in an arrogant level of confidence. Just like overconfident.
I'll get over it. It's fine.
But actually, that overconfidence and that arrogance really helped, because I feel a lot of my recovery and healing was due to my positive mental attitude.
So I was going to say, what was it like on the mind, right? You find out you've got cancer.
Yeah.
You find out it's
Yeah.
very serious.
Yeah.
The first thing you think of when you think cancer is death, right? It's like, okay, I've got cancer, I might die.
Yeah.
What was that moment like? Or did you?
I remember it
that?
clearly. Thank you for asking. It's a really, it's a really key point. And what is the first thing that comes to your mind? And something's occurred to me over the years is that when adversity comes, I'm actually quite good in adversity when it lands in front of me. And I'll give you an example now, and I'll give you another example after. But like you said, you think, oh, you're going to die and all this. So I started thinking about my family. I saw my brother the first time he cried, man. He broke down. He broke down and cried in front of me, man. He must have been, I don't know, 11 years old, 9, 10 years old, 12 years old. And, I came home and I was, in my mind, I was strong. I was like, okay, well, F it, whatever happens, happens. But when I saw what it done to my family, that gave me strength.
Was that the bravado in your mind? Whatever happens, happens. Was there...
No, not at all, man. And I don't know why that is, because it should be like that. It should be like that.
Why do you think it was then that you had this?
I don't know. Maybe I had a crap life in it, and I was just like, "Oh, thank you, Lord." Look, I didn't have a crap life. I had a very good life. I had, everything any man could ever ask for. But it was challenging. It was difficult. But there's always been something in me from a faith perspective, even if I wasn't outwardly spiritual or outwardly, practicing my theology.
Sure.
There was an element of faith, and I don't know if it was faith or confidence or overconfidence, but I really did feel strong. I remember watching a boxing film just the night before my before my operation. I can't remember what it's called now. The Bull, maybe, or something like that. It's a Robert De Niro film about a boxer, and he just fights the whole way. It's like everything's against him, but he fights the whole way and he wins. And I saw that right the day before my operation. I thought, you know what, I can have this. I can fight this. But the main driving factor for me, to revert back to your question, was what I saw is what it done to my family. At South Asia, and those times, it was unheard of. I don't know anyone who'd had prostate cancer before me. I don't know anyone in my age group that had cancer. My granddad, I think, died from lung cancer as an old man.
Sure. But that was abroad, right? Not here?
No, that was here. Oh, that was here. Yeah. Both my grandfather and grandmother were here. And that was in the 80s, I think, a year or two after Oz was born. So again, I was young, but it wasn't really a known thing. Cancer was very, very unique. So my family, very supportive and big on the prayers and going straight to the spirituality of things. They actually collapsed. I could see my dad was broken. I could see my mum was broken. I could see my sister, my brother, people around me, my friends, my family.
In a weird way, that might have given you some strength, right?
That is
like, I need to get through this.
It was for my family. I decided to live. It feels, I'm not being arrogant.
No, not at all.
The Lord forgive me.
It makes sense.
But I made a decision that I'm going to live. I'm going to, I'm going to beat this. I'm going to fight this. And as literally as easy as I said it and thought it, it manifested.
Came
and it happened. And I recovered within like weeks. And I was back even worse than before, enjoying myself, traveling the world. And but what it did do is it brought me several steps closer on a spiritual level. That's one thing it did do. But when I compare it to the second experience, which I had some 3 years later, God, it was painful. My body had gone through 23 years of use, and probably extreme and maybe some bad usage as well. Maybe I haven't given my body the right nutrients, the right things to listen to look at, to absorb. Maybe a lot of negative things have gone into my body over the years, and it's just age. So me having that operation took me out for a month, whereas before I was up the next day.
Let's go back a little bit to when you found out compared to, because just so people watching at home, I've not heard this entire story. I know it happened, but we've never discussed this, right? Which again is kind of a sign of the way even now things are with communication, discussion between men. There's things we've sat for hours and spoken about everything, but this specific topic, I've never heard from you before.
Yeah.
So When you found out the second time
Sure.
versus the first time,
Sure.
what was that moment like?
I almost... So when I was going through it second time, I was getting kind of that deja vu reminiscence of the first time. And even before they told me it was confirmed and I had it, I already knew that, you go through life and you just know, innit, that this, this test coming up, this is for me. I know this is about to happen.
I remember we spoke about it when it happened.
Yeah.
And that was pretty much your attitude.
Yeah,
I think when we spoke, you said, look, I've got a test coming up.
Yeah.
And I pretty much know what the result's going to be.
Yeah.
Without having any confirmation.
Exactly.
And I think that's as much as we spoke about.
Exactly. So in terms of now, my faith is a lot more my belief. The spiritual way I live my life now, how I live my life now compared to 25 years ago is very, very different. So my thinking behind it was very, very mature. But because I was older, physically weaker, actually, I don't know if you remember that kind of period of kind of COVID, and it was a very difficult time for me on many different fronts. I was kind of bombarded.
You were battling quite a bit, and no one knew about it.
Yeah, and that this is physical health you're talking about, but I was suffering on a mental health basis, on a social health basis, on a physical health basis. The only thing that was strong within me was my spiritual basis. Everything else was completely out of sync, out of line. And actually getting cancer was almost like a relief for me. Like, people might leave me alone now. They might actually hear that this guy's actually, I remember, the funny thing story went out and people thought I was lying. People thought he was lying.
Initially, you didn't tell anybody.
No.
So even though you thought deep down inside, this
I'll
might
tell
be
you honestly,
a reason
this time
why...
I didn't even tell my family. My mum and dad, my missus, they found out the night before I was going for my op. And I purposefully kept it that way because... several reasons, I don't want people to worry. My wife would have worried, my mum and dad would have worried, the whole family would have worried. I think people have got a lot going on in their own lives, especially during COVID. Everybody was up against it. Everyone was in a test, whether they done well or not, or they admit it or not. Everyone was being tested in one form or another. So I decided, and this is maybe my maturity, I decided to take the test on myself and just man up and just take it and deal with it.
Did you feel the same way? So the first time it happened, there wasn't a support system in place. Like you said, it was kind of a different time.
Yeah.
You had to just deal with it. There was no one you could go to, whether it's community or whatever, and speak to.
Yeah.
The second time around, did you have the same feeling, or did you think actually it's there, but I don't need it? I can deal with this on myself.
Yeah. So look, it's less of a taboo subject nowadays. It's more common. Right, you'll hear it a lot now. He's got cancer. She's got cancer. It wasn't like that before, so it's more of an open discussion. So, did I have people available to speak to me? Yes, I did. Was it possible? Maybe. If I'd have gone and kind of put my weight on someone else, which is what I didn't want to do. But it was COVID, so we weren't. I wasn't. I remember this was the real hurtful thing. I went through that whole thing and my mum and dad couldn't come and give me a hug about it. Do you know what I mean? I didn't get any physical contact. So I had to go through this thing, internalise in my mind and go through the physical pain.
There was a social distancing.
But I didn't have, because of the social distancing. And I guess a little bit because of the things that I'd gone through in my life. I'd gone through some very traumatic and kind of turbulent experiences on a social community level, personal relationships level. And they can be very painful. They can be painful to the heart. They can be painful to the mind. So it was a culmination of things. But like I said, when you're a man, you deal with things. And I don't mean a man as if you're a man by gender. I mean, you're a man. You've gone through your life. You've gone through the tests. Yeah. You've stood the test of time. You've stood in the battlefield. And you've managed to kind of win the battle. And you are a man. You have a family. You have responsibilities, etc., etc. And actually, I'm a support function for people rather than me being dependent on people.
Sure.
So I consciously decided to take the battle on myself.
Okay.
And if you ask me honestly, I'd lived a good life, man. The kind of the last 25 years up until that point, 22 years, I'd lived a really, really good spiritual life.
And were those the thoughts you were having at the time? Like, okay, it's cancer again, death is a possibility.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of...
I was very happy, man, internally, to the point that I was like, life, for me, is something worth divorcing. I understand that, there's a statement made theologically by one of our kind of imams that we believe in, and he said you should divorce yourself from this world because it's
one thing saying it, and another thing actually getting to the point where
you actually feel to
everyone
do it.
can say something,
Yeah.
right? And then when it happens, normally
Yeah.
you kind of go the other way.
Yeah.
But to have that faith to be like, well, actually,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
if it happens.
That's how much I'd grown spiritually. I didn't think about my family. I didn't think about, I've got Ali Raza as my kid, and I've got my missus, and I've got my brother's kids, and, they're as important to me as my own. But I didn't think about any of them. I thought, all right, if you save me, you save me. But actually, I don't,
Okay.
I don't mind. I'm happy, Everybody has to go sometime.
Sure.
So why not? But I don't know how common this thought would be in people. I haven't spoken to other people who've gone through it.
I don't think it is very common, which is one of the reasons why I specifically want to have this conversation.
Sure.
And I said at the start of the show, you choose to or have lived your life a certain way.
Yeah.
A lot of people watching would hear that statement and say that's a defeatist attitude. You may have not been mentally all there. You may have been suffering with something. To say, I'm okay with, let's just say it how it is.
Death.
At 45 at the
Yeah,
time.
45 at the time. Yeah.
Right. It's quite odd, right? It's quite strange. Like it's not as common.
Yeah.
It sounds like though, neither of those two events were. People have that moment in life where I've turned things around. Like, we all grew up the same way. We've all done things at 18 that we wouldn't do again now.
Sure.
It's quite common. I hear it from most of the guests on the show. As you said before, that journey from 0 to 18 is pretty similar. We messed around, we got beat up, we got in trouble, we managed to come out of it, unscathed to a degree. And then someone has a moment where life changes. Sometimes it's marriage, sometimes it's your first child, sometimes it's something like cancer or an illness.
Yeah.
But it sounds like between the first episode and the second episode, you'd already found the spirituality by the second one. So what happened in between that put you on the path you're on now?
So, cancer is really bad and it's life-threatening. But for me personally, it isn't the worst thing that's happened in my life. I've actually suffered more and felt more pain through personal traumatic experiences, mental health experiences. They've been far more. That's probably why that I thought, all right, well, because you don't have to deal with the mental health issues.
Sure.
And what I've realised now is all men have mental health issues. It's because they don't have an outlet, they don't have people to discuss it with. In the generations I were growing up in, whatever issue you had would be ridiculed, it would be mocked. So you wouldn't want to put yourself
You just got to man up and deal with it, right?
You wouldn't want to make yourself vulnerable, do you know what I mean? But nowadays it's not quite like that. It's a very different world we live in. But for me, it was the negative mental health experiences I had.
Okay.
So whether that would be through failed relationships and betrayals, love and those kind of relationships, or just having relationships with people that you're really, really fond of, that they mean a lot to you, and have that relationship or those relationships go wrong, or have people turn against you in a society. These kind of experiences, they were more painful for me than an actual physical. So there's no control. Like, I got cancer. There's no reason why I got it and someone else didn't. It's one of those things.
Sure.
But societal experiences, people put you in experiences.
Okay.
So they can or they cannot. I can be good to you, or I can be negative to you. And I've realised in society, general society, including our own, humans are sometimes not the nicest and the friendliest and the kindest of people. Actually, when pushed, they can become quite ruthless,
quite
and
nasty.
And for all of my mistakes and all of my sins and all of the things I do wrong, one thing I don't do is wish bad for people and do bad towards people. Any bad I've done in my life has been towards my own self. Right. So I've hurt my own body. I've put things in my own body that are right. I've looked at things that I shouldn't have. I've done things that I shouldn't have done. But I've tried my best to make sure that I don't put pain and suffering.
And would you say that was always been the case from the very beginning, or is that also part of the development that came at some point where you realised I need to, or not need to, but your change occurred?
I think on some basic kind of genetic level, it was in me.
Okay.
Because you're either an oppressor or you're oppressed, isn't it? Yeah. So and I would rather be oppressed than be an oppressor. My dad's a very straight down the line truth. Everything has to be fair.
Yep.
He's not got that kind of do this mentality or very straight down the line. And it was always about truth, no matter how painful it is. But that's something I adopted from him, and I think that that's part of the reason.
Okay. So would you say that, having gone through those experiences, could you pinpoint a particular time or a particular, a year or 6 month period where, because you haven't always had this mindset. I remember when we were younger, and you were obviously slightly younger, it was very different. You weren't always the same age that you are now.
No.
Would you be able to, is there even a time, or is it more of a gradual growth? But is there a period where you say, actually, it was this that changed my mindset? Something happened that revealed some truths about myself. I had to kind of sit and think, hold on a minute.
Absolutely.
Instead of blaming the world, or instead of blaming X, Y, and Z, you look within and say, okay, actually, had I not been in that place at that time, I may not have ended up here. Had I not said this, what I said here, or did what I did here, I may not have ended up here. Was there a period of time where that happened, or
sure.
a moment?
I think what it is, it comes down to experiences. So one way I've been lucky, and like yourself, like all young men, they dream about having money, a business, cars, girls, clubs, holidays, living. Everybody's a common dream. But some are only able to dream about it. Yeah. And there are those that are able to go forward and practically manifest something, right? Through their education, through their contacts, through their entrepreneurial ability, whatever. Sure. Through their capability of taking risks and actually having that courage and confidence to do that. So I've always been that guy, right? So if I can think about it, dream it, I can do it.
Yep.
So we were speaking earlier, kind of off camera, and you remember the days I had a brand new M3 convertible, and I had, at one point I had 12 properties in London, mixture of flats, houses, commercial. I was traveling abroad. I've traveled the whole world. These are pipe dreams for most people. Let's be clear. They might have the dream, they might even have the idea, but to have the resource to put it all together and then make it work is a different skill set. So I am someone who was driven, motivated to go forward and try to do these things. There's no guarantee of success. It was just constant perseverance. And
it sounds like you were very headstrong, even with, the first instance. I don't want to keep going back to it, but you knew you were going to fight it, right? You knew you'd get through it. Yeah. Similarly, if you set your mind to something, you kind of know you're going to do it. You'll find a way, whether it's the right way, the wrong way, whatever. But I'll find a way to do it, because that's just how you
the attitude,
how you were built.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think in most things, if not everything, a positive mental attitude and having good clarity and mental health and well-being will get you through most of your problems.
How do you achieve that, though? Because everyone says it, right?
Oh, God, yeah.
I mean, maybe that's something we go on to slightly next, because we are going to touch on it.
It's a big topic.
But I want to come back to it. Because, what you hear online is, get up at 5 a.m, have a positive mental attitude,
which I do
go to the gym. I read a post the other day from an influencer that someone asked a question on his Instagram and said, how would you deal with anxiety or depression? He's like, it doesn't exist, just go to the gym, right? And I get it, because going to the gym helps, but a lot of people are stuck in that place where just getting out of their physical environment and getting to the gym is a challenge.
Sure.
So I do want to come back to that, because a lot of people say having a positive mental attitude is great, but what can people do at home to develop that positive mental attitude? And I think with the way you live...
I think, look, depression, or anxiety, whatever you want to call it, if we look at it from a very high summary level, it's basically getting stuck in your thoughts. And it's getting stuck in negative thoughts. So experiences from the past, things that have happened to you that are negative, and whatever experience you have, positive or negative, it leaves its footprint on you, right? And most people have negative experiences, which they can't let go of in their mind. And I suffered this a lot. So I'd go through an experience, a negative one, and then I'd go away, and that negative experience would be in my mind for years and years and years, and dwell, and I'd give it a place to live, and I'd feed it, and I'd make sure it was there, and I'd grow it.
Sure.
And I was just constantly doing that. And then I began to realise. So that's one end of it. So that's the past, and then the other end is the future. So people get stuck in the future. What's going to happen?
Yeah.
Where am I going to end up? And the whole anxiety and thinking about the future. So there's a past and there's a future. Actually, when I realised to be in the present, to get your mind and your thoughts in the present, is actually the correct thing to do. And then the past,
ask you,
let.
How'd you do that?
Smoke weed every day. I'm joking. So it's a big topic. I don't want to go kind of deep dive into one thing. So there's a lot of things you can do. So the first thing, don't look at what you haven't got. Don't look at what you want. Look at what you have.
Okay.
So you're bringing yourself into the present moment.
Sure.
Not what you've lost,
Yeah.
that you might have wanted or is a loss for you, or what you want to achieve and you haven't got in your life. Look at where you are in your present moment and what you have.
Okay.
And then look at what you've got and be grateful for it, right?
Sure.
So we, in our, I don't know what the word is, stupidness, we get caught up in the past, we get caught up in the future, things we've lost or things we want. And we totally miss the things that are important. And the things that you allude to on your kind of social medias, on your LinkedIn, on some of your podcasts, is you refer a lot to about your children, being present with your children. That could be your parents, it could be your partner, it could be your brothers and sisters, it could be just, the Lord's blessed you with good friends, isn't it? Or good colleagues. And it's about being grateful for what you have. And really grateful, not like, I've got good family and friends. Like, shit, there's people out there that have got no one, they're alone.
Sure. Would you say, though, in order to get to that point, you have to almost have something to compare it to, right? So I know you travel a lot. I'm just trying to connect dots here, because saying things like, being grateful, it's true.
Yeah.
But how do you, for example, someone comes on the show and says, arrogance is bad and you've got to be humble. So one of the things that you do to become humble is, for example, give charity. Would you say that what you saw on your travels kind of created a bit of gratitude for you, because you go out and you see people with far less than you, as opposed to social media these days? Generally, everyone online who's got someone presence has got far more than you. They're driving a better car, or they're in a bigger house, or they've got more money. Whereas actually traveling and seeing how other people live in the world with one pair of shoes, one pair of slippers, an item of clothing and no food, kind of gives you okay, well, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm all right.
It definitely helps. I won't say that's the sole reason. I've travelled everywhere, and travelling really develops you as a person, develops your character, your experiences, shapes who you are. But I wouldn't say it's the sole reason. Actually, we focus, because you said, people have a better car or a better house or a better job. These are very superficial things. Yeah. And it's about elevating yourself away from the superficial and the plastic, and actually into what is really a blessing. So is a Ferrari a blessing for you? You might think it is. Right, but actually it might not.
But when you've faced health issues like you have,
exactly.
The
When
biggest
you're faced with terminal illness,
is your health, right? Like
when you're faced with terminal, that's the link. When you're faced with terminal illness, when you're at a junction in your life, and you get to see everything, and what you do is you sieve out what's real, what's not. And when you go through that process, because you're facing it, and I've faced it twice, is you realise that having a car is great, but you know what? The last year I haven't had a car. Yeah. It's probably the only year that I've driven in my, from 17 to 48, which is kind of 31 years. Only out of 1 year, out of 31 years, I haven't had a car, and it's not made a difference to me whatsoever. But when I was younger, I wanted the M3s and Range Rovers, and I've had all kinds of cars. But actually, when I look back and analyse it, none of it made me happy. As soon as you got one thing, you want the next thing. You want the next, you want the next, you want the next. So this is the illness, being attached to things that are not really relevant. Of course, it's going to develop your health in a poor way, because you're actually focusing your energy and things onto things that are superficial, they're not real. So it's about finding what is real. And it could be different in different people's lives.
Sure.
But I had to look at what was real for me. I was faced with death. And for me, it was, from a worldly perspective, it was my family. That was the main thing. my mum, dad, brothers, sisters, whoever was
Sure.
around me at the time. That was the main thing. But other than that, when you're faced with death, and because of my theological beliefs, basically it came down to a balance sheet. How bad have I been and how good have I been? And first time round, I wasn't satisfied really that I'd been good enough. You know,
Sure.
the scales were tipping.
Sure.
You know, so I was grateful. I'm grateful to the Lord for giving me the extra 2 decades to go out and try to do some good. And as you know,
Correct the narrative.
I've changed my life to live more positively. I used to live a very negative life, not negative towards people, but negative in my habits and
Sure.
actions and wants and desires.
So, having gone through what you went through,
Yeah,
having realized and, faced with death,
yeah,
the balance you spoke about,
Yeah.
the scales,
yeah,
lived your life a different way.
yeah.
What do you do now to keep yourself
okay.
on that
Sure.
on that path in that spiritual space? Because we mentioned something happens,
Yeah,
you kind of feel you need to change,
Yeah,
and it's really
yeah.
easy to slip back into
Yeah.
your old ways again.
Yeah.
What do you do? Do you do anything consciously now that
Yeah.
that is designed to keep you
Sure.
at that zen?
sure. Well, it's a trap,
So-
right? You know, there's a trap. The Matrix, however you want to, it's a trap. You know, you
been
get
watching a
your
lot of
enlightenment, you get your clarity, you come out of it, you feel better, you level up, and you take a step back out, and you get caught in the trap again. In it,
Yeah.
you know. So how do you kind of release yourself from the trap? Look, I've had another experience. I don't know if you want to touch on it about my daughter passing away. That really changed my life, my family's life. I think, as my brothers especially.
If you're comfortable speaking about it, absolutely. If not, we can we mention it. We can breeze past it. Whatever you're comfortable with.
Yeah, she was adopted. I adopted her from my brother, and she lived 9 months with us, and she died of a brain hemorrhage. She died on. She went ill on the 1st of Muharram, and then after the 13th of Muharram, she died on the 14th, and we buried her on the 15th. That was a real traumatic experience. But again, and maybe my brother will can agree with this or not. You can ask him. But that is similar to the cancer when it happened, and because of the dates it happened with, because my focus for them dates are purely spiritual and purely religious, and I forget everything in the world. She's gone into hospital on those days, and I'm faced with, okay, what do I do? Do I focus on my responsibilities towards God and God's work? Or do I sit down and focus on my daughter, who's a gift from my brother, who's a gift from God? And, do I focus on there? And this helped me make the decision to walk the higher path and focus on God and the days that were.
Sure.
And that's began to lead me to Zen. It sounds strange. I didn't spend any time with her. Actually, when she died, I was forced to say thank you to God for it, and not actually, neither me nor my brother nor my family didn't get the opportunity to sit down and grieve because of just the time period that it happened.
Sure.
And that's where it started. So I buried her in Woking, and how my life began to change is I began to spend more time in the graveyard.
Okay.
So I didn't grieve in a traditional grieving sense because of the time period it was, but what I did do, what that whole experience did do, is leave a mark on me. And it left a very, very positive mark on me, because me and my brother, for 2 months and 8 days, we went round doing the community, spiritual, religious things that we do. And from there became the realization about developing our own charity, Mass 110, out of which we have a spiritual arm, which is Imam Barg al-Hassan, as you know.
Which, for people watching at home, is a community centre, effectively. It provides a space for a community to get together, lectures, prayers.
Yeah. So we started originally as on a spiritual basis, but to answer your question in a bit more depth now is a further change came along during COVID, and it was during COVID we realised that society suffers from spiritual health and well-being. We knew this, right? Doesn't matter if it's a mosque, if it's a church, if it's a synagogue, if it's a mandir, if it's a gurdwara, wherever it is. People are suffering from spiritual health and well-being. We had been focusing purely on spiritual health and well-being from...
Why? Where did that come from?
So, without going too deep into theology, because I have a deep respect for everyone's theology, and I believe that all good comes from theology, and I believe we should have a humanitarian approach. about our own theology and other theologies as well. I travel a lot for spiritual pilgrimage.
Okay.
So to Saudi,
Sure.
to Iraq, to Syria,
Sure.
once upon a time, to Iran. Those trips have extended into the Middle East, into
Jordan, Lebanon.
Jordan and Lebanon, and kind of surrounding countries there, and even into Pakistan. And if you go into even the Punjab, you go into Lahore, and basically that whole region.
Sure.
And even if you go into Sindh and Karachi and that side,
Sure.
that whole region there, I began to become almost addicted. So I've got an addictive personality, a bit similar to yourself. Whatever we do in extreme measures. I began to find my healing.
Okay.
So mental healing, heart healing,
Sure.
and in the end, physical healing, and it all balances out through my visitations.
Okay.
And one element is visiting yourself and going, and I would feel the spirituality. I would sit and engage in
Reflection, you'd say?
reflection. Yeah. Because if you're honest, then the key thing comes down to if you're honest and you look at yourself, anybody, you'll realise we're actually disgusting human beings.
It's funny you say that, because I was last night, day before, thinking of what I wanted to discuss with you. And, we think about titles for the shows and things like that, the technicals
Sure.
behind the scenes. And the word honest was something I was going to use, because there's something I remember clearly. There's probably, for me, a defining moment or a piece of advice that someone had given me that at the time I didn't necessarily understand, but changed a lot for me. And it was you telling me to embrace honesty.
Yeah.
Whether you're wrong, own it. If you've done something, own it.
Own it.
And just embrace honesty.
Yeah. The
Because,
truth will set you free is a phrase that everybody knows.
and when you start doing that outwardly,
Yeah.
you start being more honest with yourself inwardly.
Authentic.
And you're like, well, actually, okay, now the outside aligns with the inside, and I can see where I need to make changes and tweaks.
You have to make a decision. Are you happy with the world thinking that you're a good person?
Yeah.
Or you pretending to be a good person and satisfying your own ego, and the world looking, oh yeah, he's a good person, but nobody knows what's going on in here and in here.
Sure.
And to actually face yourself in the mirror and point a finger at yourself, this was actually one of the hardest things to do.
Yeah, it's difficult.
I found it impossible. I've been lucky in my life, man, to have met certain people, God's people along the way, people who I felt that God has sent to kind of guide me, help me. Sure. And I'm it's a shout out to all of them, without exception in it. I'm very, very grateful to them. Very, very grateful, because they made me look at myself. And as hard as it was, because my ego kept coming in front and blocking the truth, admitting about myself that where I'm wrong, and everybody wants to look at where they're right, or when they're being wrong, they want to look at the justification for why I'm being wrong.
Yeah.
So I'm being bad to Mohsin. Why am I being bad to? Oh, because he done this to me once. It's a justification.
Yeah.
Rather than I'm just being bad.
Yeah.
And I made a conscious decision that, listen, I'm not going to get judged by anyone else, by anyone else's standards. I'm going to get judged by my score sheet.
Okay.
So I want that score sheet to be as authentic and genuine as possible. So I had to humble myself a lot, man, and I had to kill my ego.
Yeah.
And it was, like I said, through help, through good brothers that I'd met along the way,
Sure.
seniors, elders.
Traveling, like you said, to pilgrimage.
Traveling. People might have gone 5 or 7 or 10 times in their life on a spiritual pilgrimage. Some of the more avid travelers may have done 15, 20, 30 maybe trips in it. I'm on about 110 in the last 20, 25 years. So, when Syria wasn't so volatile and dangerous and we had more access to it, a direct flight was very cheap. Yeah. I think maybe 40 or 50 times I've been to just Syria and Damascus, and I love going to these places of history, not even just Islamic history. So we've been to where John the Baptist is buried, and looking at that whole history, go up to the mountains of Lebanon and where Adam's son Habil is, who was killed by Kabil, and even kind of that side of history. for some reason, I just feel very, very peaceful after visiting these places, because you know why? It's real, it's truth, it's honest, it's linked to reality, real reality. These things happen, these people came, this story exists. And the world we live in is designed to keep us away from all that. So kind of come COVID, one thing that really changed for me was we were locked up and we only had a certain amount of time outside. What do you do with that time outside? So I live very near Dinton Pastures and Ashenbury Park and Great Windsor Park and all these beautiful lakes and valleys and hills. And so I started walking there every morning. And it was very different because I'm a city guy, right? So I was used to the London life and the city life, and I was working as, doing consulting in the city many, many years. And what I began to realise was, listen, I go through an experience, I level up, I take a step out and I fall back into the same trap again. And this was constantly happening, even after our daughter passed. I got to a really good place, mentally, spiritually. Excuse me. But eventually I ended up falling back in the trap again, as you do. So until you recognise the trap, you're always going to keep falling into it. And society, what we began to realise over COVID is society is designed to kind of block out your frontal cortex, man, and put everyone in a mammalian way of thinking and living.
Okay. Could you explain that a little bit?
Yeah. So the things we eat.
Sure.
What are we eating as humans? Are we eating what God designed us to need to eat? Are we putting the right nutrition into us? Be it through liquid, be it through solid food, be it through what we read, what we speak about, what we watch, what we listen to, how we engage our time, how we live. After COVID, I'd realised, because I breathed in COVID, right? So COVID for me was, even with the cancer, even having COVID 3 times, it was, oh, mate, this was amazing. It was like heaven for me. It felt like everyone had been told to stay inside, and I was around walking in the world and enjoying it. And I got reintroduced to lakes, sea, nature, animals. I used to see a dog before. I'd be like, oh, there's a dog there. And,
I remember we did that a couple of those ones.
Oh, the dogs. Now they come up and they jump, and I love them. And going for walks, simple things like going for walks and breathing air. I'd forgotten how to breathe. So COVID gave me that time to walk in the morning, walk in the evening, spend time in nature.
It just slowed everything down, didn't it? There was less to do. Down. So you've got a bit more time now to actually go for a walk where you couldn't before.
And you don't want to spend your time thinking negatively. I wanted to spend my time using that to transform and heal, and level up, innit? And not just level up in my money, but level up as a human being, and make myself a better person, which I hope everyone has an aspiration to do. So I walked, I spent time with nature, I lined myself up with greenery again, and I began to realise how trapped I was in the city. I began to realise, hang on, what have I been eating? I've been eating things with E numbers. I've been eating things that are not good for me. I think it's sustenance, but it's processed. Out of 100% of what I eat, only 30% is being absorbed, and 80% is going out as crap. That can't be good. So I began to learn about, we understood spiritual health and well-being. Then I began to understand physical health and well-being. So before I was into the gym and training and Thai boxing.
I was going to say, because you've always been in great shape. You've always been, you were Thai boxing many, many years ago. There was a time where your physique was really impressive. But this was 10 years ago, 15 years ago.
That's genetical. I'm from a kind of family of athletes. People are into kind of wrestling, or they've been in the army, or my dad was particularly into bodybuilding, and formidable bodybuilder as well. He had beautiful physique, and he wasn't fat. He had the abs and everything. So that's been very natural for me. But it's only part of the puzzle. People think it's the answer. It can be an answer if it's for you, but it's only a part of the puzzle. Actually, what you eat, what you watch. So when I was realizing I'm in my phone for like 18 hours of a day like this, and what is that going into my mind? What am I absorbing? If I'm sitting in a wrong crowd, if I'm sitting with people who are negative, always talking badly about people, the discussions are just basically on a really low level, or if I'm spending time with someone who's talking about philosophy, talking about technology, talking about spirituality, talking about things that are really, really positive and helping me to learn, I began to compare how it affected me,
How you felt after
and
those
how I felt.
conversations. Yeah.
And obviously, as addicts, it's all about how we feel, right?
Yeah.
So then I realised going on a pilgrimage makes me feel good. And I come back, and for a certain period of time, I'm still feeling good, but then I get trapped again.
You're trapped again.
Going to the gym makes me feel good, but it was all about how I look and aesthetic. But now it's my mobility, my strength and conditioning,
You're still training,
my
right?
power. Yeah. Not very much at the moment. I mean, I had a good few months consistently, and then kind of a month of fasting came in between, and
Sure.
as you know, things teeter off. But even still, once to twice a week.
Yeah.
I'm nearly 50 now. So I train smartly,
Sure.
before I used to train with ego and volume
Yeah.
and quantity.
Yeah.
But as you know, with most things,
How about that walk? Is that walk still happening?
yeah. I
Still
would
going
die
nature?
without the walk, man. I wouldn't. Life wouldn't be worth living. For me, it's early morning, 5, 6, 7 o'clock. Even if it's not early morning, if it's 9, 10 o'clock, depends on what I've got on in the day.
Sure.
If it's midday or if it's even in the evening. But for me, the really nice time when no one's out, the day's broken, the lights come in, it's a fresh air, you got the birds are tweeting, you got the animals waking up. Few people are up.
Yeah.
There aren't many cars on the road.
Sure.
So all you can hear is nature.
Okay.
That's all you can hear. You can hear the water. You can hear animals going through the trees or the bushes, squirrels climbing up a tree. You can hear birds, this bird, that bird. They're all having their conversations. And then you actually began to, and I think all of the books of God testify to this, is that, listen, spend time with nature and you will recognize your Lord. You will see the signs.
Yeah.
So I began to see the signs
Okay.
because I didn't have faxes, ringers,
Sure.
screens, traffic, tubes, trains, meetings on the phone,
Yeah,
meetings,
yeah.
and you're constantly trapped and surrounded by things that are
Sure.
pulling your energy.
Yep.
They're using your. They're not giving you energy. They're taking it from you. All of a sudden, you're in nature and everything's giving. The greeneries is giving. The trees that they're giving you air to breathe. The birds are talking to you. They're giving you something nice. Blissful melody to listen to.
Yeah.
And it just rewired my brain.
Okay.
It settled my breathing. I practiced my breathing. And I've done this regularly every day for hours. And eventually my walks went from 1 hour to 3 hours. And then it wasn't about the walk. So it's not about the physical walk. It is to an extent,
Sure.
but it's not at the same time. It's about stopping and smelling the roses. Taking time, stopping, smelling the roses, and appreciating like God's gifts
There's
to
a
us.
nice little lake, right, with the I think what they're called, kind of mini piers.
Yeah.
You can just go stand out.
Yeah.
We've been a few times on that walk. And you just stand there and you
I'd
see the
stand
lake
it
in
so
front
you're
of you.
actually on the water
Yeah.
because it comes away. So
Yeah.
it's like a pier.
Yeah.
You're on the water. I'd sit there with my rosemary beads and I'd sit there and And first it was all about me going on these walks and connecting with God and praying and trying to cleanse myself. And I was very dirty. It's a dirty mind, dirty heart, dirty everything. So I wanted to clean it up, right? And this was a way I found to do it. And it worked wonders for me. Then now it's become less about reading prayers and it's more about spending time with nature.
Sure.
So it puts me into that present frame of mind. And then what you think about in that present frame of mind
It's very different.
is very different. It's with clarity.
Yeah.
Then you're not listening so much to the devil in your ear. You're listening more to the angel in your ear. You're focusing positively on things. Everything around us is designed negatively to rip us apart. And once you realise this, and you realise the different elements to it, so you've got spiritual element, physical element, social element, mental health and well-being element. You've got a educational health and well-being element. You've got a financial health. All of these things need to be ticked. So you don't have to be a millionaire,
Sure.
but you just need to make sure that your bills and stuff are being paid.
Yep.
And how you spend your money can also change how you are in your life as well.
Yeah.
If you're someone who gives more charity, so you spend more on others than you do on yourself, you'll find that you become very grateful in life. It's very rewarding. Rather than being someone who's, I've got money and everything should be spent on me. It's a completely different attitude.
Yeah.
So you begin to improve your character. You become more... so you're not stingy, you're not focusing on yourself, you're not selfish, you're looking at higher principled, higher valued things. So it's a combination of these things. What you eat, are you eating enough greens? Herbs. We've always been on the wrong kind of herbs most of our life, and I just started discovering things like Chicorium intubus. I've sat with scientists and really intellectual, spiritual people, about Chicorium intubus, and I didn't know. I'd never heard about it, and
Sure.
I'd had piles for several years, like such extreme level piles. My guy needed a passport and a name, right? And I'd had one glass of this Chicorium intubus, chicory it's called, mixed with some fresh apple juice. I remember the apples were picked out of a garden as well. It might not have been the most nicest, sweetest, but it was pure, right?
Sure.
It was pure. And literally one glass and it got rid of my piles that I'd been suffering from years and years and years. So when something like that happens, you make a connection.
You think, hold on.
Hang on a minute, what am I eating? So now I eat less, but I eat the right things. And now 30-40% of my food is not absorbed, more like 70-80% is absorbed. But I'm eating less and I'm still putting on weight, or I'm maintaining my weight. It's more efficient. So, if God's given us a Ferrari-like body, you don't want to put tractor diesel in there. Do you know what I mean? Because it's not going to run, and you become ill, or something will break. And I guess again, it's really, really long conversation. So I'm trying not to go deeply into everything. But social health and well-being. Good time with your mum and dad. Doesn't have to be long time, but good quality time. I love the things you're saying. Sit down and eat with your family, man. Yeah. How often has a good time been where you've sat and you've broken bread with someone, with your friends, with your mum and dad, with your children? And these are things I wasn't doing. My family were eating their own dinners. I was in my own timetable, living my own life, and constantly like this. And it was just getting rid of all of that, man. It's just changing that whole lifestyle and adopting this new hippie style lifestyle, if you like. Where I'm walking and I'm going, wow, and I'm hugging a tree and I'm eating the herbs from the... It sounds weird and mad, and I'd never thought I'd be this guy, but combined with the spirituality, combined with the gym stuff I do, or the physical activity I do, combined with who I spend my time with socially, combined with kind of my prayer and my worship.
Sure. It all comes together.
You balance it all out, and it comes together. And this is what being a man is actually learning how to balance
that word,
the entire wheel.
Yep.
And, from COVID and from my daughter's death, leading into the spiritual element, developing the place of worship, from COVID and developing a more solid charitable foundation, which now covers health and well-being across all of these things. As you know, we do kind of, my brother does cupping treatment. We're working with phytotherapists who are scientists on herbal medicine and how equine therapy. Al Hassan Nights, is a program we're developing, for horse riding, for bow and arrow archery, for swimming, for camping, aligning with nature, all sorts of projects and programs going on. And we do our yearly kind of trip abroad, where we would go Iraq, Syria and Iran. All right, Syria's out the equation, so it's Iraq and Iran, and then back home. And it's been a long, hard, arduous journey.
It sounds like
full of tests, full of kind of U-turns in stories, and all of a sudden this will happen, and very painful, but again rewarding experiences, man. I've met wonderful people along the way. I've had wonderful lessons. And overall, it's improved me as a person. I don't really have hate in my heart for people anymore. Before I'd be like, oh, this person done this person done this. You have to let it all go. Because thinking about it or being angry, someone mentioned this to me, it's like someone else makes a mistake and you drink poison for it. Do you know what I mean? Why am I poisoning myself because of someone else's mistake? Someone's done bad to me. You've got to man up and just say, okay, things happen, it's all right. And if you believe in karma, or you believe in the good Lord, and you believe that, if justice you do have to, justice will be done, then be patient. And
what's it to worry about?
Patience is probably a 10 podcast thing for you. Sure. That the topic of patience is an industry in itself. But patience is one of the things that you have to learn to adopt, alongside being satisfied. That whole feeling of being in the present and being satisfied and grateful. Sure. When you start combining all of these things, even on a little level, you don't have to dive deeply into everything and be proficient in all of them.
Yeah.
little.
So this is what I was going to come to next, right? As we wrap up, what advice would you give somebody who there's a lot of advice online, right? This happens, you do this, this happens, that, but a lot of it's unrelatable, right?
Yeah.
And someone hears this and says, the food, the diet, the time in nature, you've earned the right, or you've got to a point in life where you have the time to do that to an extent where others might not. How can someone start on this journey? What's the first thing they should do? Should they go for a walk for half an hour a day? Should they focus on their diet first? Let's break it down into 2 or 3 pieces of advice for someone who thinks, actually, I resonate with that.
Yeah.
I've had these periods of feeling good.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of, but I'm struggling with consistency.
Yeah. Yeah.
What 2, 3 pieces of advice could you give them and say, start here, and then you start to see the effects compound?
I mean, I don't think I can give you an answer that's going to be much different to probably what's out there on social content, but it's probably because it's true. People spend too much time on their phones.
Okay.
In their screens.
Yeah.
And a lot of the depression and anxiety and the negative feelings we get is through that.
It's information overload, right? We weren't designed to process as much information.
Exactly. And what is the information? Is it information? Is it factual? Is it anything benefit? Or are you just kind of dopamining and, just want to keep buzzing and watching something? So I had to put down the phone.
Okay.
Literally, I almost had it switched off for most of the day.
I remember there was times where you used to switch your phone off.
And leave me a message and I'll put it on, and when I can speak to you, I would. And you have to kind of not imprison yourself, because you're not imprisoning yourself. You're actually freeing yourself. Isn't it? It's beautiful. But it's unusual, right? It's something that's not an everyday thing. So you have to be motivated to do it. But on a very simple, basic level, just to start this and to get an understanding for what you and I are talking about, I would, try going a weekend without the phone.
Okay.
And for that weekend, I would plan solely nature-based activities or social-based activities with your family, your kids, your wife. Going to a park, going for a walk, going for a picnic, going to the beach, or just walking alongside nature.
Okay.
But switch your phones off. No one has access to their phones. And what you eat for that weekend, make sure you only eat something that's natural, that's
single ingredient, whole food,
nutritious. It's got no E numbers and D numbers and whatever else they artificially put into food nowadays. It might taste good, but it's just sugar, for example.
Yeah.
So, for example, don't drink Coke, don't drink Red Bull. Sorry, I don't know if I can say that or not.
No,
but,
you can. It's fine.
Any soft drink, but drink water instead.
So basically, what you're saying is try a weekend, no phone, spend some time out in nature.
Yeah.
Drink water for 2 days, and just see what happens. Right?
Do light exercise.
What's
if
the
you're a
worst?
bit more healthier. Do some physical activity.
Sure.
Go surfboarding or cycling or go for a run.
Sure.
But try to cover all of the things you can. So something that's going to help you physically, mentally, socially, spiritually. Financial is neither here nor there. But maybe educationally. Yeah. So maybe try to learn something new.
Sure.
And just on a little scale, you don't have to kind of divest your whole life into something. And right now, I'm going to go into the Himalayas for 4 days to experience this. No, you can literally go into your park and sit by the lake where there's ducks in the pond and just do something simple. So I started off by taking bread, going sitting at the lake and feeding. And then when the birds start coming up to you, when the ducks, the swans, the animals, they start coming around you, and it's you and the bread and them, you interact with them. Right, and it's fun, right?
It's almost like you're making time and you're making space to let things come to you.
Sure.
To see things.
Exactly.
When your mind's convoluted and there's 101 things going along, it's very difficult. But actually, when you've got no phone, and you'll find that even when I'm not on my phone, there's times where I'm worried about my phone. Right? Mad. It hasn't rung. It hasn't rung in a while. Is it still on? Let me just double check. Right? But if you're away from your phone and you say, actually, you make the decision for 24 hours, for example, I'm not going to touch it. You give nature a chance to...
Look, on a smaller level, as an example, you and I have been speaking for an hour. I swear to you, I haven't looked at my phone once.
Yeah.
Because we're having an interesting conversation, something I'm interested in, something I could learn from, or you're asking about my experience, something for you could learn.
Yeah.
Just a give and take.
Sure.
And because we've been having a nourishing conversation, positive,
You don't
wholly,
feel like...
nothing negative. How many times you looked at it? I don't think maybe once. Yeah. Once I saw you look at it in an hour. And I'm looking at it now. I haven't picked it up.
Sure.
That is... Otherwise, if it
Quite an
wasn't,
achievement in
I'd be like this.
2025.
I'd be like this. I don't even know what I'm looking at. I don't even know what I'm scrolling.
It's just habit, right?
It's just a habit.
Yeah.
So everyone says it, but it's about creating the right positive habits.
Okay.
But just please, you just got to start on a small scale level, something manageable.
Yeah.
It's not extravagant.
Yeah.
It's a way of life.
I think that's really important.
I walk into acres and acres, 150 hectares of greenery and lakes, right, every day, right? But it doesn't have to be that. I can go into my local park and just walk around where people would walk in their dogs and walk through this forest and woods and boom, I'm back home in 40 minutes.
Yeah.
It's nice. Just make sure you're alone, or it's you and your partner or you and your child, and you're making the point of it being quality. You're making the point of it being positive. You're breathing in the air. When you go there, you have a nice green, fresh sandwich, whole foods, nice water, nuts, fruit.
Sure. Try it.
Try it.
Try that weekend.
Try it, man. Try.
See
Well,
how
you know what I'm saying is right, because
See how you feel. Because I think as humans we're quite stubborn, right? We have to feel something ourselves.
Yeah, yeah.
I can talk to you till I'm blue in the face about
Yeah,
doing
yeah,
this
yeah.
until you feel it yourself. Especially if you're like us,
Yeah.
we're bad at taking advice.
Yeah.
You have to experience it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, look, we've always had good advice around us. Let's be
Yeah.
honest and frank about it. We ignored
Just
it
never took
because
it.
it's just arrogance within us that we know better. And unfortunately, it varies from individual to individual. But myself, and I know for you as well, we're quite similar like this, is we need to have everything go really extreme and go really wrong for us to learn our lesson. And then we're forced to learn our lesson. And I don't wish that upon anyone, actually. And that's why for the last kind of 12, 14 years, I've dedicated my life to the community. I'm dedicating the rest of my life to the community for the sake of the good Lord and the theology I believe. And I can see you're doing that as well. And from doing that, my life has got easier. I don't have tests, and it's all maybe even worse. But it's how I manage it that's changed. How you
approach it.
Because I manage it differently now, it doesn't affect me the same way as before.
Sure.
But yeah, thank you, man. Thank you for the
thank
time.
Thank you for
and
sharing.
This was totally unprepared as well. It was a completely off the cuff.
But this is what
conversation.
This is about. I
hope
want
it benefits,
people,
man.
No, I think it definitely will. I don't want people to come here. I never tell anybody what we're going to talk about beforehand because it's supposed to be unfiltered. It's supposed to be real men having real conversation. I've said it before. I'll say it again. But yeah, once again, thank you for coming.
No.
If you're watching at home, if you've enjoyed the show, if you've taken any benefit from it, please show us some support, share, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. This has been the Morse Code. I'm Morsin. Peace out.